Hi, everybody. Happy Friday, and welcome to another episode of Be a Friend Friday. It's the first Be a Friend Friday of 2021. Usually, we do Be a Friend Friday on Instagram, but we are expanding our horizons this year, and we're so excited for our first guest to be Hannah. Hannah, please, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for taking the time to tell your story today. You're a young college student, so I'm sure you're very busy, especially since you're a junior. A junior year is extremely busy. So please, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Hannah, as she said. I have been a type 1 diabetic since I was 15, and I'm 21 now, so it's been almost 6 years. I'm a college student at Arizona State University studying global health, and I'm actually doing a lot of research in my honors thesis about type 1 diabetes and social networks. So this is totally like right up my alley, and I'm really happy to be here talking about it with you.
Yay! So Hannah, I maybe can we start at the beginning? When you were diagnosed, and I know you were diagnosed at a younger age. It's been some time now, and maybe tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed when I was 15. Nobody in my family has type 1 diabetes or really any autoimmune, so it was pretty new for us. But I just was really sick, really skinny, like, something was wrong, and we just decided to go to the doctor, and I ended up in the hospital for a couple of days. Yeah, and I remember all of that so clearly, just being scared, and I remember crying when I had to give myself the first shot, but, after that, it just became second nature. So, yeah, it's been about 5.5 years, like I said. I've been on a pump and a Dexcom for almost the entire time. I was using Omnipod, and I just made the switch to t:slim, and those have been really helpful, in helping me manage my diabetes, but it's not always easy. So, staying involved in the diabetes community has been really important for me.
And does diabetes run in the family at all?
There are a few people in my family that have type 2 diabetes, but I was the first to get diagnosed with type 1. And then after I had had diabetes for like 5 years, my brother was just diagnosed and he's 22. So he was diagnosed like 7 years older than I was diagnosed, and it came as a big surprise for us. He got diagnosed really early. He was never really sick, but we just saw some of the really early signs, and just had his blood sugar tested over the last few years. And yeah, so he ended up getting type 1 as well. So he's had to navigate that during the pandemic, which was definitely a different experience than I had.
Yeah, and speaking of the pandemic, I'm so interested in hearing about how your college journey has been combined with your COVID journey and your diabetes journey, like all of that together. What was it like? I know 2020 was a really hard year for everybody, but what was it like for you navigating college and diabetes and the pandemic? I mean, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so 2020 was crazy, obviously, for everybody, but it was like one thing after the next. So my brother got diagnosed with diabetes in January, and then I remember being super involved with my club and super involved with doing research and everything. And then this was in March. My friends and I went on a little spring break trip, and it was right when everything was hitting with COVID. And I remember my Dexcom supplies all ran out. My insulin pump was like failing. My blood sugar was, I don't know, 400 or something crazy because my insulin pump failed and I was on vacation. And so I had this like a little bit of like a stress hit like wave come over me, and I just called my brother and had this huge culmination of all these things happening and cried about diabetes and everything. And then the next couple of days was like, okay, you're moving home now. There's a pandemic, the dorms are closed, all of your friends are going home and you're not going to see them for months. So yeah, it was a lot happening in March. But then my whole family was living together in one house, and I think it was probably good for me and my brother to be together while he was learning how to do everything for diabetes. And I think that was, probably helpful for us to be able to support each other during that time. And one thing that I noticed that was kind of hard on me having diabetes through COVID was that, okay, I might be a little bit higher risk than some people around me, a little bit higher risk than my friends. And so trying to navigate being more careful than my roommates or my friends, or my roommates are really understanding, and they have been on my side, which is great. But yeah, being a little bit more high risk than other people my age was kind of weird to navigate. And so just getting used to that, getting used to understanding that I need to prioritize my health a lot because of diabetes was difficult during the pandemic for sure.
Did you feel like the people in your friend group, your loved ones basically were extra careful around you as well because you are at higher risk?
Yeah, that's definitely something that I think put a little bit of stress on my family when I was staying at home. We had to take so many extra precautions, and I have a little sister who's 16 who she has no health issues. She's like the perfect image of health, but I think it was hard on her to kind of realize, like, okay, maybe I can't see my friends either because my sister and brother have type 1 diabetes. And so it's a big stressor and it's a big ask to put on other people to be more careful on your behalf. But yeah, I think I feel really lucky that people, especially my mom, was really there for me and trying to advocate for me and my health. It was really important to have people on our side through all this.
So how did you guys how do I say this? How did you guys keep things light and fun and normal during this time, especially being indoors and such?
Yeah, honestly, it was really hard, especially being at college. Like, once I did end up moving back to my apartment and moving in with other 21-year-olds, it's hard to be in situations where, like, there's possibly risk coming and going. And so we did definitely have a few like, we didn't get sick, but we had a few COVID scares where people on, like, the outskirts of our social circle would test positive, and then we would have to just decide, okay, well, now we're going to quarantine for 2 weeks. But at least we have the three of us, the four of us. And so we decided, like, okay, we're going to have game nights in our little quarantine bubble. Or like, we went on probably like 20 hikes in the last couple of months. We want to walk together every day. And I try to make a point to go and see the sunset with my roommates. And
I love it.
yeah, it is nice that they're really, they're so understanding, and it's really nice to have that support system. When I was at home, that's stressful too, especially like the thing with my sister, and it's a lot of us living in the house together that we haven't been in the past, really long time. My brother had been in college at the University of Arizona, and then after his 4 years of college has to move back in all of a sudden, and we're like trying to share a room, kind of like trying to like
The worst.
yeah. So, I mean, it was tough, but, prioritizing, like, doing things that we could, games, movies, and pretty much, like, walking the dogs, going on hikes.
Yeah, it kind of forces you to get creative, I guess, not rely on all of these other things and, get closer to your loved ones that you're able to spend time with, which is amazing. So let's talk a little bit about how, obviously there's online schooling, right? Like for college and even younger, everybody's doing virtual schooling. I'm sure it was difficult, but maybe how did that impact your diabetes management routine? Did it make it more difficult for you to like eat the way you're supposed to eat, maybe, or get the workout in that you're supposed to, you know what I mean? So how did that impact your management routine?
So, the first thing that I noticed with class going online is I just lost all of this walking. So, I
Mm.
used to walk like 20 minutes to class, and then maybe walk another 15 minutes to go to my next class. And then, okay, so now I have a 30-minute walk home from that class, and I'm going to eat a granola bar on the way, but I can't even bolus for it because I'm walking so much. And so, losing all of that was a little bit tough on my blood sugar because obviously that, like, amount of movement during the day would definitely impact my blood sugar, which I didn't really realize how much of an impact it had. So losing the exercise was a big thing, and it's kind of hard to motivate yourself every day to go and do it when it used to be built in. So that's definitely one thing that I noticed. But it has been, I think, a little bit easier to work on my diet, which I never really did as a type 1 diabetic, especially in a peds endo clinic. They don't really encourage that you use diet to manage your type 1 diabetes. And so I never really did it. And I never had an adult endo before this year. But over the quarantine, I decided to go like sort of keto, low carb, and my A1C had been stuck around 7 for a while. It was kind of hard during college, you know, my schedule was crazy, whatever. I was eating at the dining hall, which is obviously kind of tricky being a diabetic. Your options are like French fries and a grilled cheese. So, but yeah, going way lower carb, I brought my A1C down to 6.4 just during COVID, and that's the lowest it's been in a couple of years. So I definitely realized that like some things are more in my control, like diet and exercise, and those are two huge things that have had a big impact on my A1C for sure.
Did you find yourself cooking more at home?
Yeah, definitely. It can be hard. You know, we all have like our off weeks. My roommates and I were talking about after finals week, we're like, I'm not cooking. Like cooking this week at all. Like we're gonna have Chipotle 4 times this week. But, which don't tell my mom that, but yeah, so definitely cooking more, trying to eat more like vegetables in my apartment was something that I worked on this year. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know that, founding the CDN chapter at your school was a really big part of your diabetes journey. So first
Mhm.
and foremost, how did you hear about that? And what came to your mind? Be like, you know what? I'm gonna start this, and it's gonna be amazing. How did that happen?
So in high school, I was lucky to be involved in the diabetes community. I was doing some teen groups down in Tucson, and that kind of was, you know, a big thing for me to feel like I had some peers that understood what I was going through, especially since I was diagnosed and there was literally nobody in my high school that had type 1 diabetes, at least that I was aware of, or that was like open about it and like wore their pump out or had a Dexcom on their arm. I saw nobody. And so after doing that, I realized that like that peer support can be really useful. And so I was, you know, 18 years old, a freshman, like looking on OrgSync, trying to find a club for diabetes. And there was just nothing, which surprised me because ASU has like 50,000 students or something crazy. So yeah, so all freshman year, I didn't really meet anybody with diabetes. And so I just came into contact with a CDN rep who helps students create chapters at their universities. And so I found out that another girl was actually in contact with him as well, trying to start a chapter. And he connected us. This is kind of a random story, but he connected us. And I realized that I actually had met her while I was going through sorority recruitment. And sorority recruitment is kind of weird. You can't really like get each other's like phone numbers, and you're not allowed to follow people on social media and all of that. So I never talked to her again, but I found out that we're both trying to found a chapter of CDN. And so it was really great. We were able to help each other out and start the chapter. And with the two of us, we had different connections with like our honors college or the Disability Resource Center. And so we just both were able to put together a contact list and get the information about our club out there. And yeah, it has been really great to have a club for diabetics for sure.
That's fascinating, and that's definitely something to be very proud of, especially after you graduate, to even say that you started something like that, and hopefully it continues after you graduate. I think you should be very proud of yourself. You're making a big impact on the diabetes community, like it's a representation. So that's really, really awesome. Another thing that I would love for you to talk about is maybe what the importance of community means to you when it comes to your diabetes management routine. I know with the pandemic and such, it's, everybody's kind of isolated. And you and I, we kind of touched on this when we were on the phone, just talking about how isolation can really have an impact on somebody with diabetes, especially. So, what was that like for you?
Yeah, I think feeling like you're the only one dealing with something can be really stressful and, it can definitely take a toll on the mental health for sure. When I was first diagnosed, I remember that was probably when it took the biggest toll on me because I didn't know anybody really that could understand the way that I was feeling. I didn't know anybody that was diagnosed as a teenager, which I thought was pretty hard, like already being so vulnerable as a 15-year-old in high school. So, yeah, the community is definitely a big aspect because I don't know, sometimes, especially during COVID, it's like, okay, if I'm stuck in my room alone, self-isolating this week, it's like, okay, who's in the room? Me and like my diabetes. And so having a CDN meeting to log on with my peers and just talking about our highs and lows of the week, not literally, but like figuratively. So I might log on to the meeting and be able to share that like, okay, my low this week was that I started my new insulin. This happened literally yesterday. So I started my new insulin pump and these infusion sets aren't working for me. And so my blood sugar keeps on going 400 for no reason. But turns out like I wasn't even getting the insulin. So, just getting tips and tricks from people that totally understand what that is like, is really nice because then I'm not the only one dealing with it. It's just nice to be able to like let other people, hear you out and understand the burden that it can take sometimes.
Do you feel like having diabetes is something that is really hard for you to talk about with strangers? I mean, not of course not in the live, right? But I'm saying like, let's say you're meeting somebody for the first time. You're talking and just small talk and such. Do you in the back of your mind think, "Oh my gosh, like do I tell them I have diabetes? Do I wait?" Like is this something that you think about or is for you because you were diagnosed at 15, is it something that just comes natural to you and it's something that you hold on, you wear on your sleeve?
So for me, I think this is definitely different for every person. Even some of the people in our club that are like leaders in the club and they're active part of it don't really tell other people about their diabetes unless it comes up for some reason. But for me, I have been really, really open about it. I always have my like Dexcom somewhere where people can see it and I get asked a lot about it. So and I think that's actually helped me to be really open about it, but not everybody is like that. Not everybody is as, like, extroverted about their diabetes specifically. So, for those people, I think having the club might even be more useful because it's not something that they would talk about with friends that don't have diabetes, or it's not something that they even really talk to their parents about. Like my family, obviously my brother having diabetes now, I call him to complain about it and he'll call me and tell me that, he's doing the same thing every day this week, but all of a sudden, like the same amount of insulin is not working for that meal. So, we at least have each other, but a lot of people don't really have anybody that they can talk to besides people in the club. So, and even for me, having the club is good because sometimes there's things with my family like, okay, this week it's really stressing me out having my whole family able to see my blood sugar on my Dexcom, which can be kind of stressful. And so being able to talk to them, vent to them about my family and about those types of stressors. So I think everybody has a different way that they use the club to, support them in whatever way that, they need.
Yeah, 100%. And, maybe we can touch a little bit on how you mentioned your brother was recently diagnosed. For the longest time, it was just you in the family, and now you kind of have a partner in crime, so to speak, somebody that, like you said, you can vent to and relate with. Um, do you feel like that's made things easier for you? Do you feel like, it's added more pressure maybe to the family now that there's two people in the family that have diabetes? How has the dynamic in your journey changed ever since your brother was diagnosed?
Yeah, so I remember when I was diagnosed and, like, kind of ever since then, before my brother was diagnosed, I used to be like, "Thank goodness it was me," because I felt like I was the most, like, I want to be a doctor one day. I am pretty on top of an understanding of, my body and what it takes to, diabetes. It's a lot of work, honestly. Some days it's not, but some days it can be a lot of work. And, it's hard to navigate like insurance. It's hard to navigate getting the right supplies places. And so I thought it was good that it was me so that, like the burden is on me. Like I'm really glad like my brother and sister don't have to deal with it. So when he was diagnosed, it was hard, obviously. Like I didn't want anybody else, especially my brother, who's one of my best friends, to have to go through something like that. But it was different when he got diagnosed, obviously, because he did have my support, which I think, us living together over that summertime was good for him and me, to be able to help each other and help him, learn these are the things that can make it easier. But I definitely think it has been hard on my family, especially my mom. It's like you already have one kid and then, you're doing your best to deal with it. And then all of a sudden everything doubles. It's like double the amount of Dexcoms, like double the amount of insurance that you have to figure out. And, there it is a lot of stuff, but at least we were able to be there for each other. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot, and you're so sweet to even think that way. That's really brave and very courageous of you. I mean, that's a lot, and that's a huge part of self-care, and that's something that I really want to touch on because I feel like, especially nowadays, self-care is just a trending thing, I guess.
Mhm.
Although it shouldn't be a trend, it shouldn't be a trend. It should be a part of life, right? And for people with diabetes, it is a part of life. Like it's a very necessary part of life. So,
Mhm.
what are some things that Hannah does during her day to keep her self care routine going? Like, do you journal? Do you, I don't know, jam to music in the morning to keep yourself leveled? Do you make yourself your favorite food? What is it that you do to take care of Hannah?
Yeah, that's so funny that you say journaling because that's one thing that's like the top of my like New Year's resolutions. I think that would be really helpful. So, yeah, I'm glad you said that because I need to start doing that. But what I actually do is I try to, like I already said a little bit earlier, I try to go for a walk. I think it's really therapeutic for me after like a long work day, being in class or on Zoom all day. You can get really tired of doing all that stuff online, staring at a screen. So I try to go outside and watch the sunset like almost every day because, just I think I read something over the past year that was like seeing beautiful things can make you happier. And so I'm like, okay, I need to like look at something pretty like once a day. And that for me is the sunset. So doing that is definitely a big thing. I also will just kind of unwind. I don't know why it's Monday nights, but I think it's just like the like idea that Monday is gonna be a bad day. So I'm like, okay, it can't be a bad day. So I just try to unwind with like a cup of tea and I'll like take a bubble bath and just try to like enjoy my night. But other than that, just like watching movies with my roommates and we'll try to do like nacho night or whatever. Obviously, just people that are in my COVID bubble, but yeah, just trying to make the most of what I have in front of me and not sitting in my room, laying in bed all day long.
Yeah, like self-care doesn't have to be this huge, like stressful thing. It doesn't have to be grand gestures or anything. So
Yeah.
that's really, really awesome. And journaling, yes, it's also one of my resolutions. I've been trying. I've been pretty good at it so far, but it takes time to build good habits.
Mhm.
So another thing that I would love to know is tell us a little bit about what you or where you see yourself in the future. I know you're doing pre-med in school, which is amazing. I commend you. I mean, I don't have the patience for that. But that's amazing. I mean, where do you see yourself? Are you excited for the future?
Yeah, honestly, the future kinda makes me a little bit nervous, I'm not gonna lie, like, it is kind of stressful being in school and just having you're like, "Okay, well, here's another milestone," like, I'm a junior now, I'm doing my honors thesis, which is actually about type 1 I think I maybe already said that. But, yeah, it's just, one thing after the next is coming, and so I obviously see myself eventually applying to med school. I think my plan is to take a gap year. I'd really like to travel. I wanna live in another state. I've been in Arizona, like, all of my life. Not that I don't love Arizona, like, there are amazing things about it for sure. But yeah, I definitely want to kind of go explore on my own. I do really want to stay involved in the diabetes community. I think it helps me to like remember that there are other people that, you know, also need the support and are seeking it. And I like to know that, you know, having a club and trying to create events and stuff might help somebody else, because I have hard times too. Obviously, I was talking about my like mental breakdown last March. So I definitely see myself continuing doing that. You know, hopefully meeting more people that want to do cool things with diabetes. But yeah, I mean, hopefully med school in the future. We'll see if I get in.
That's awesome. I'm sure you will. That's amazing. I know we only have a few minutes left, so any lessons or words of advice that you could give those of everyone that's watching right now? Any lessons that you learned from 2020 that maybe you've carried on into 2021 that you stand by so strongly and could advise everybody watching?
I think one of the biggest things that I kind of learned in 2020 is that when you are, or when I have been kind of feeling isolated, it was important for me to like remember that even though I might be exhausted and maybe a little bit anxious and it was hard to deal with, you know, having to be more careful than people around me, etc., that I did have a really strong like social network that was, you know, willing to listen and wanting to understand. So prioritizing those relationships and communicating with people that are probably going through the same thing but not saying it was definitely a big thing that I learned in 2020. And another thing is that although like being in these social networks, especially CDN, is one of the most important things for, you know, feeling good and feeling understood about my diabetes. It's okay to like take a break. Like it's okay to not be so involved in the diabetes community for 1 month if you're feeling burnout, with the community, but always knowing that it's there and a resource that you can access when you feel like some support might be useful, is definitely 2020 as well.
I love that. Health is wealth, and that includes mind, body, spirit, all of it. So you really touched on the dot there. And I'm so happy that you came on the show today. It was absolutely amazing. You were a breath of fresh air, and I'm sure everybody who's watched has enjoyed it. The comments are incredible. People are saying that they relate. People are saying that they, you know, they're talking about how they also have type 1 and how people in their family also have type 1. So there's a lot of relation there. Everybody is kind of in the same boat here. So thank you, Hannah, so much. It was amazing. And to everybody watching, thank you so much for taking the time on this lovely Friday. I hope you all have an amazing new year. And please stay safe. Wear a mask. Physically distance. Don't socially distance. You can still, please talk to people. The whole point of Be a Friend Friday is to keep your friends close and your family closer. And, you know, reach out to people like Hannah on social media and build a community just like Hannah is doing, as she gets, you know, as she goes through her journey. And we will see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.